I saw that when my parents were going through any kind of feeling, didn't have to be an uncomfortable feeling, whether it was a feeling of discomfort or celebration, if they took a pill or they smoked something or they drank something, their whole attitude changed, their mood changed. And so I kind of kept that in a shelf in my mind, like, okay, that's what I have to do to get through life. And a lot of uncomfortable things happened to me in childhood. We were constantly being evicted. I had no foundation in my life. We used to steal our groceries. My mother would make me help her steal and lie to police if we got caught. And it was just like it felt so unsafe, like very insecure sort of childhood. So my parents' dis-ease of addiction, it progressed over the course of their lives. And I watched that happen. And then I developed my own dis-ease of addiction. It was just to cope with what my life was. In 2007, this was like the height of the Oxycontin epidemic. My parents were very involved in that. Our whole house was just constantly filled with pain pills and benzos. And it was just like the whole house was just littered in like orange prescription bottles. And my parents were facing another eviction. The lights were turned off, the gas was turned off. And they made this decision to end their suffering and to stop using drugs. And in order to stop using drugs, they thought the only way to do that was to kill themselves. And so they completed suicide together on October 4th, 2007. And that death just completely, there's no words, I had felt like a victim my whole life, like all of these things that had happened to me in my life, I was so victimized by, and this was like just the end of it. I decided that I would no longer be a victim after this death, that I would be the perpetrator in people's lives. I would be the abuser. And this was the shield that I would put up to protect myself from all of the pain that I was experiencing. And I also, like, drugs became my parents after this experience, I no longer had physical parents. And so, drugs were my higher power. They were my God, drugs and alcohol, and not just drugs and alcohol, anything to not feel. Food, men, codependency, any sort of toxicity that I could get my hands on. I used that to shield myself from all of the feelings that I was too scared to feel. And like my dis-ease of addiction also progressed, and it became my whole personality. Like I'm covered in tattoos of like liquor bottles and packs of cigarettes. It's very embarrassing, but this was my whole life. Like I thought that this was going to be how I lived and died, was like being like this quote unquote party girl. But really, I was just masking like this huge gaping wound of abandonment and rejection that I felt from the loss of my parents and just the loss of any sort of childhood that I never felt like I got to have, So I ended up getting really strung out on drugs. And I mean, like every drug. I've hit bottom on every drug imaginable. Like alcohol is most certainly a drug in my life, and it destroyed me for a certain amount of time. And I just kept replacing substances, like just thinking like, okay, well, it was that substance, this substance will be better. So I ended up overdosing and I died. Well, sort of. I guess I came alive for the first time is really what happened. But I ended up, having a very spiritually transformative experience. And the people who have near-death experiences, they describe almost to a T exactly what happened to me, except that I didn't physically die. And so, like John had mentioned, I found some language for it today in my life. What I believe happened to me was I had a Kundalini awakening. Don't know what Kundalini energy is? That's okay. Neither did I. Kundalini energy is described as life force energy, and different cultures have different names for it. In the Western world, we might call it receiving the Holy Spirit. So I had this activation where my spiritual body, the 7 chakras of my that my human holds in place, they all came alive and activated all at once. They had been completely asleep and deactivated my whole life. So as my energy was rising up and down me, it was like very physically jarring. It was actually causing me to pee all over myself. So half of my awakening was spent on the toilet, which was kind of funny. So as my third eye and my crown opened up, my spirit shot out of my head and went into the space of eternity. And I was guided through that space by some masculine energy. I perceive it to be like my own divine masculine energy. And then it sort of morphed into my father. And I had just recently, I had a boyfriend who had passed away right before my experience. Their voices led me into this space. And it really felt like I was waking up from a dream. And my experience parallels John's a lot because, and I didn't realize it until I read his experience, but I also had sort of a hellish experience because I was experiencing a life review. And it was happening sort of like all at once. And so the major part of my life review that was like the most hellish part of my experience was re-experiencing my parents' suicide. But not only did I experience it from my point of view and the pain that I experienced as being orphaned immediately, but I also experienced their desperation, the way that they felt before they did this. And it really felt like I was stuck in hell. Like, I mean, it was just so debilitating and so overwhelming. And yeah, it's not really a part that I touch on a lot, but like that sort of life review, feeling all of these really dense experiences that had happened to me in my life all at once. And then I started cruising into heaven and unconditional love. It was like none of that had even happened. And it really felt like I was waking up from a dream. And I remember sort of like shaking my figurative head because there's no body there and just being like, whoa, that was crazy. The same way that when you wake up from an actual crazy dream, you're like, what just happened? And I could only grab 3 seconds of 35 years of life. And the 3 seconds that I could grab was that my parents had committed suicide. And then I started getting downloaded with a lot of information all at once. The whole infinite of the cosmos was put into my mind. I've only been able to bring back little sections of it. One of the main things that I was told in my experience was that, well, the first thing I was told was you have to go back to Earth. And I was like, no, thanks. I'm not going back there, you know? They said that I was a spiritual warrior, that I had signed up on a divine mission to be on Earth at the most exciting time to be on Earth because the Great Awakening is happening. And I've signed up to be there for the ascension of Earth and to help transmute dense energy. And like, you know, they were really hyping me up. And like my commander is like this Christ consciousness, this Krishna consciousness, this higher cosmic consciousness. And that I'm this foot soldier here for the, you know, like ready for it. And I was like, whoa, that story is so cool. I am definitely not going back. I will watch the show from up here. It sounds awesome. Sounds like you got a whole militia down there. That's really cool. I'm going to grab some popcorn, my PJs. I'm perfectly content right here at home watching the show from here. And so they said that is not an option. They just kept telling me it's not an option. And so they took me through the specifics of my pre-birth planning. They told me that I had planned everything that has ever happened to me in my life. And that's what John was talking about in this lesson 158 in a course where it says the script is written. And so they told me that I, as a soul, had designed this entire human experience for myself. And they took me through the specifics of it. And so the way that it looked to me was that I was going through this grocery store. There was a man guiding me. He was wearing a fedora and a plaid blazer, and he had an empty grocery cart. And he said, okay, pick your life. And I could see myself sort of like as this little orb of spirit, like this little orb of light. And I was like bouncing up and down, so excited. And I was like, if I'm going to Earth, I'm going to Earth. And I took like my figurative arm and went through a shelf of this, you know, like life experience grocery store and just threw they looked like cereal boxes. I threw every cereal box into the cart. And, you know, it was like molestation, addiction, the double suicide of my parents. We picked that together, the family line that I would be born into, the reason why, the partners that I would have my sexual, emotional, and physical traumas with in my life. The one that really sticks out to me very prevalently is the man who molested me as a small child. I saw the moment when him and I came into contract with one another to have this experience with each other and the reasons why we chose this experience. And there's many, but one of the main reasons why is because I had been his abuser in a previous life and we were meant to balance the energy for each other in this life. And, so like in this moment of, and there was also things in the grocery cart that I had not gotten to yet in my life. So none of them resonated. Like I saw spiritual awakening, recovery, overcoming, like all of these really beautiful things, but none of that had happened in my life. And so I couldn't even conceive like how that could be part of my human experience, because all that I had experienced was the darkness and the trauma. So, like I'm downloaded with this belief. I have this deep inner knowing that now I know that I have picked my life. I see all of the moments. And it was like 2 tons of bondage had been released from my spirit. Things had no longer happened to me. They had happened for me because on some soul level, I had chosen it for the evolvement of myself. Now, my human cannot understand why I would choose such things, because it doesn't have any kind of comprehension to like how this could evolve me as a spirit. But my spirit knows, and source knows. And so, like, again, I was like, oh my God, thank you so much for this information. I'm still not going back. They were like, okay, listen, like this, you signed up for certain life experiences. This is not a punishment. You just have not balanced your life yet. There's still so many more boxes in the grocery cart that you have not gotten to. And you have to go back and complete what you signed up for. They said, if you refuse to go back into her, meaning this body that I'm in right now, then we'll show you the baby that you'll be born into. And so they showed me this little baby. She was so beautiful. I'm sure that she exists somewhere in the collective now. And they showed me everything about her. They showed me her ethnicity, her gender, her parents, where she would be born, her adversity, her life challenges, her purpose, her mission. And because she was going to have to take on all of the things that my soul had already picked, she was going to experience many of the same experiences that I had already experienced in this life. And I thought, oh my goodness. And she had even deeper levels of societal adversity than myself. And I thought, there's no way that I can start from zero. If these are my only options, I'll go back into her. And I found myself sifting back into my awareness, into this body. And I just remember them sort of like yelling down, like, it's not going to be as difficult as it was. Trust us. And I was like, I do not trust you. I found myself back in my body. And, I wrote this whole experience off as drug-induced psychosis, because who wouldn't? Like, this was not part of my life. I was an atheist. Like, I did not believe in things like this. I just thought that like this was the most insane trip of my life, and I will never be this messed up ever again. And that was it, And so I went about my life the way that I was. I kept using, I kept lying, manipulating, stealing, thieving. This was what my life was. And then source, the universe, God, the divine stepped in this very loud, tangible way, so that I could not deny that there was something else, something bigger going on, and that I really had to get onto a different path. So these divine synchronicities started to take place in my life. For instance, all the drug dealers that I had been dealing with for over a decade all simultaneously decided to change their lives and stop selling drugs. I'm talking about people that did not know each other. I'd call up a dealer. I'd be like, hey man, what's good? He'd be like, listen, I found Jesus. I want to be a good father. I'm out of the game. I'm like, okay, that's weird. Click. I'd call up another guy. He'd tell me the exact same thing, but these guys didn't know each other. And so like now I had no way to get drugs. And this was a problem because I had a physical dependency to heroin. So on top of a million other mental addictions to a million other substances. So I found myself on day 3 of withdrawal, just sicker than I had ever been in my 20 plus years of using opiates and heroin. And I had a thought and I said, damn, couldn't even kill myself if I wanted to right now, because I'm so sick that I can't even get out of bed to figure out a way to kill myself. And this moment was like a mental or spiritual suicide for me, or maybe a physical suicide. Maybe I did actually kill myself. I don't know. Who knows? The infinite is so vast. There's no way to really tell. But, I had this voice come into my mind very loudly, and it said that I could request what I wanted fixed. And so I said, okay, I want to know. I said, okay, voice. I mean, like the throes of desperation. I'm willing to believe whatever, I said, I want to no longer be physically dependent on heroin. And then they told me to lay back and close my eyes. And these 2 little men appeared in my mind's eye, and they had little lawnmowers in front of them. And I watched them walk through the crevices of my mind. And as they mapped out my mind going in opposite directions, I felt these intense hot tingles and then a bright white flash. And I was instantaneously healed out of day 3 of heroin withdrawal. I mean, like seconds before, I was sick all over myself from both ends, sweating, writhing in pain. It felt like my bones were set on fire, like they were made of broken glass. And then all of a sudden, in an instant, I was no longer in agony. I was completely well. And I threw myself out of bed. I fell to the floor, crying out to the infinite, like, how could this be happening? I don't believe in this. Why is this happening to me? Like, you could not have picked a more unworthy subject. You know, like, just for the contrast, when this happened to me, I was, I was a devout militant atheist. I was an orphan to suicide. I was a drug addict. I was a prostitute. I was a liar, a manipulator, a thief. I was a racist. I was a rapist. I was all the things that you would think would make you completely unworthy of grace. And here I was being completely bestowed with the unconditional love of source energy. And after that, my path became, well, almost crystal clear. At first, I thought that I had to like go out and spread the news and start telling people that I could spontaneously heal them because I had been spontaneously healed. And so I went out onto the New York City subway system and I started proselytizing, and I was like trying to lay hands on homeless people and like cure them of whatever their ailments were. It was insane. But then after that, it started to settle down a little bit. And I found myself just sitting on a train. I had no destination. And this man appeared across from me, and he was wearing a 12-step fellowship necklace. And I heard a voice, and it said, "That's your path. Follow that man to a meeting." And this was about 2.5 months after my like initial experience in heaven, and maybe about a week after my spontaneous healing. So I had like a lot of time, like just sort of like, teetering on the edge of my actual path. And I followed him to a meeting, and I kept going to meetings every day, and I just had no idea what had happened to my life or who I was. And I found myself in this big, huge meeting, like 75 people. And I happened, synchronistically to be sitting 2 seats away from the program director of a long-term rehab. Like I didn't know how to be a person. And now I find myself right next to a woman who can teach me how to be a person and keep me safe and make sure that I don't use or stray from my path. And so like, I'm psyching myself up the whole meeting. I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk to this woman. I'm going to beg her for help. Like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to ask a stranger for help, but I really feel like I'm supposed to, and I'm going to. So like, I see like a little inner version of myself in my mind's eye, and she's like punching the air. She's like doing jumping jacks. She's like, you can do this. You're going to live a new life. Come on, come on. You could talk to this woman. And so the meeting ends, and I walk over to where she was sitting, and she was gone. She left early. And I felt so defeated. And so I walked to the bus to go home with my head hanging. And as I stepped onto the bus, that woman was sitting right there. She left the meeting early and was somehow on the exact same bus as me, not at the bus stop in front of the meeting, because that's where I was. I ran up to her totally manic. "Oh my God, I think that you're an angel. You're sent to earth. You're here for me. I want to talk to you in there, but you're already gone. Now here you are. Oh my God, this is so divine. Can you help me? Will you help me? Please, please, please." And she said, "Yes, we can help you. Come by tomorrow. We have a bed." And that sentence changed my whole life without my permission. I did not want to do any of this. I really felt like I had no choice. I went there the very next day with just the clothes on my back. There was nothing to take. My most prized possession was a $200 vibrator. I didn't have a lot going for me. I figured if I could leave that behind, I could do anything. So I started my journey, and I went into this long-term facility. I stayed there for 17 months, which is like psychotic. I didn't have a cell phone or a computer for a year and a half. I had to like read books to learn things. It felt very archaic. I felt like a caveman, but I had this insatiable thirst for knowledge. I read every sacred text. I read everything I could get my hands on about metaphysics and the law of attraction. And I began to manifest my reality. And I just started off with small things, right? I'm going to see a blue ball today. And then they would take us out to go play handball, which is something that they had never done before. And it would be a blue ball. And then I started, like I started asking the universe for the tools that I needed to become the person that I was supposed to be. And I found A Course in Miracles in a very beautiful synchronistic way, as it comes to many of us. But like I said, I didn't have access to the internet, so they would let us go to the library once a week, and there was this small section for spirituality and religion. And there was this book on a shelf, and it was like kind of poking out so that it could really get my attention. And I just saw A Course in Miracles Made Easy by Alan Cohen. And I said, oh, I like miracles. I'm a miracle. So I grabbed the book and I devoured it. I mean, like if you could eat something, I ate it. Like I didn't sleep. I read the book all day. And then I kept going to the library and trying to look up A Course in Miracles, but like I didn't know who the author was. I didn't really know anything about it. I didn't know like what to search, and there was no option to order it, to reserve it. And so I just kept getting books about A Course in Miracles from other authors. I read a lot of Gabrielle Bernstein. I really enjoy her as A Course in Miracles teacher. She has helped me so tremendously. She's also in recovery from her drug and alcohol addiction. So that is also another nice synchronicity. And I had like some other books, and they would check your bag whenever you would go back into the facility. And one of the program directors, she saw that I had all these books about A Course in Miracles. And she said, oh, I actually have the course. I bought it 30 years ago. I tried to read it. I didn't like it. It just sits on my shelf in my house. Do you want to borrow it? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it was a long-term program. So like she knew how big it was. I didn't know how big the book was. So when she brought it to me, I was like, oh, maybe I'll be done in a month. She was like, yeah, good luck. Okay. So I started reading every day. Every day I read. I did the workbook lessons, and like it reprogrammed me in this beautiful way. And it felt like a handbook for the recently deceased. And I was like, okay, this is, it's very challenging to read. It's just like in the movie Beetlejuice, like I need a caseworker to help me get through it. And I thought, well, when I'm done reading this, I'll probably get to go back home. Like I'll ascend as soon as I'm done. So I really stayed steadfast in reading it. And some of the parts I didn't understand what I was reading, but I just kept going. And when I got to the end of the text, I really, truly thought that I was going to ascend. I like took off my shoes. I laid back in my bunk bed. Yes, I lived in my bunk bed for 1.5 years. And I thought like, all right, this is it. I got to the last paragraph. I'm like waiting to feel something happen. I get to the last sentence, the last word, nothing happens. But I had a lot more knowledge. So that was really the gift of it, and now it's definitely one of my main spiritual tools in my life. And that's my story of transformation. Thanks for letting me get raw and vulnerable and share a piece of myself with you guys today. I appreciate the space and everybody being so present.
All right. Can we all say, wow? I guess we can all say, wow, right? One heck of a story, one heck of a journey. My God, the parts of it that were, among others, that are most interesting to me, having gone through a drug-induced, actually, it was LSD and ketamine combination. Also, it's interesting you talked about going through your head. I went through my head too. I don't always hear that description, that it goes that way. And another thing you said that part of my experience, you mentioned orbs at one point. So there was an experience in which I was actually an orb, but surrounded by other orbs. I don't know how else to explain that, but just like they were spheres of consciousness. And in my experience, there was this whole thing about being either pulled to, like in a gravitational sense, another orb, or being pushed away from. But I don't know how else to explain it. It was like a gravity factor that was affecting everything, so that you would come into or go away from, that kind of experience. So mine also was hellish insofar as having to let the ego go. I mean, John Mundy disappeared, space-time, planet Earth, my family, my life on the farm. I would see all these things like in flashes, and then bang, it was gone. I'd be in this other space all crazy. I mean, there was a lot of, and especially as I came back, there was like I'd be in this space, and then like I'd fall down, I'm in another space, and then I'm in another space, another. So you talked about seeing your father was talking to you and someone other than your father that were communicating.
Yeah. So I had a boyfriend who had passed away about a year before my experience. He was there and my father was there. And then it just sort of morphed into like every masculine energy that I've ever known. I mean, when I think about the fact that we are all one, like it was, my brain was sort of compartmentalizing, like, okay, this is somebody that I trust, that is safe. This is someone that I love. And then it was able to kind of expand into the oneness of all things.
Mhm. One of the interesting parts of mine was that as I was coming back, I went into this like big round room, and it was like I was being born. I don't know how else to explain it, but like I was tearing away a layer of like a cocoon or something. And one of my girlfriends, Edie Cadenhead, was there. Now, what was interesting about that, and I don't remember much dialogue or anything like that going on, but Edie was very much alive at the time, but she died later. So that was like when she died early. I mean, she was 50 some years old when she died from cancer. That's this whole thing about connections and making relationships. I'm just beginning to get more into the plan idea. There's a plan behind appearances. That's a very interesting thing. So a lot of near-death experiences report both a pre-plan and also a review. Did you have any you'd had both of those, right?
Yes. Yes, I did.
You had the review and sense of, but there was shame and guilt associated with the review. There was no shame and guilt associated with the review.
Well, yeah, like my spirit cannot conceptualize putting a connotation on something. So, like,
Right.
my human is like, okay, you're a prostitute, you're a drug addict, like, those things are bad. But like, my spirit is just like, these are experiences that we signed up for. And it doesn't realize like the weight that it has in human society because it doesn't understand human society. So, like, part of the review, well, like I went through the damage that I had caused other people, the damage that other people had caused me, and I felt all of those things. But it happens so instantaneously. So even like picking my life experiences, I'm downloaded with what the experience will be. So I say, like, I want to experience double suicide of my parents for particular reasons. We both signed up, we all signed up for that together. And so they download you with like what the experience will feel like. And you go like, okay, I can handle that because you're experiencing it for like a millisecond. Like, there's no such thing as time there.
That's
I
right.
don't realize that I'm going to have to deal with that pain for, decades of time. I don't think that you asked any kind of question like that, but I just felt called to share that.
Did you, or were you the one that found your parents?
Yes, my sister and I found our parents. I was 23, my sister was 18.
It was traumatic for both of you, no doubt.
Yes, definitely.
Is she okay?
She is thriving. She's such a beautiful person. I mean, like, my addiction really destroyed a lot of my relationships. So that's a relationship that's just beginning to mend now. And she just like has opened up the door, a tiny little creek so that I can, sort of come back into her life. And it's a slow and steady process. Definitely my biggest challenge in a special relationship for sure.
Sure.
But that's where the course comes in to help me.
One of the parts that I find is interesting, what I've seen in some of the other near-death experiences, having watched a bunch of them now. First of all, the whole thing of time. Time collapsed in my experience. I mean, it just collapsed. I don't know how else to explain that. And actually, right here, I've got this book, Time: The Vast Illusion by Ken Wapnick. Because the course is very clear. It is an illusion. It's just something that we make up as a part of the society that we're in. But then, of course, the Earth moves around the sun, and the sun has its own turn, and so that gives us days and nights, and it's easy enough for it to come up with time. But when the Course in Miracles says that this is an illusion, that now becomes much clearer to you. I mean, the whole world.
Oh yes, most definitely. Well, yeah, and thank goodness for the course because it helped me like integrate that information. Because when I came back from my experience, I was like, oh my God, we're trapped in a video game of hell. Why doesn't anybody else know this? And like I had to just really integrate the information that like this is a dream. It can be a nightmare, which my life was a nightmare, which is why it felt like I was stuck in hell, because my life was a nightmare.
Right.
Or it can be the happy dream, which is now what my awareness has allowed me to transform into.
Something else that you're talking about that a lot of people are talking about now is an awakening that's going on. There's a change that's happening in consciousness, which is really kind of enabling us to see the dream and to see the story, to realize it is a dream, but then having an ability also to step aside, to transcend that a bit by being able to look back at the thing and think, no, that's just a story that's going on. What do you
Yes.
also do with it? Go ahead. You want to say something about
Well,
that?
yeah, I was just going to say, like, that's a story that can assist people in awakening, right? It's like there's purpose in some stories, like
Oh, yeah,
even my
absolutely.
story. Yeah, there's purpose in hearing about transformation, because so many people are stuck in denseness. But that story is definitely one that has helped me, yeah, like come into a different awareness. And I like that story. I hold it.
What about one of the things I've noticed is simultaneity, that it's happening on different levels at the same time, but we're all part of it. I mean, within that, you and I are actually in at the places at this very moment, so to speak. The Course in Miracles talks about what it calls your other life is been going on all simultaneously with this life, which implies that this life, insofar as an ego-based life, that's the illusion. So there's a self that we really are, which transcends this whole game, so to speak, this whole story.
Right.
So then the question is, how do we awaken to the memory of who we really are?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I feel called to share this analogy.
Sure.
And this is, it probably has a lot to do with like the generation that I was born in, and like, the culture that I grew up in, but I really do see it like a video game. Now, my true self, my spirit, is wearing a VR headset and believes that I am this human. Like,
Right.
it thinks that I'm the character in the game because
Got it.
it seems so real. I can like see this 3D version of myself. And so when I read the Course, and the Course told me that God doesn't even know that I'm here, I
Right.
thought of it like, okay, my spirit is wearing this VR headset, and
Right.
I'll use like gender specific, just even though I don't see God as a gender, but like I'll say it that way. So like God, my eternal Father, right? He knows that I'm in there playing a video game, but like he's not going to like check and see what I'm doing in the video game. He's definitely not going to check and see what the character is doing in the video game. Maybe he'll peek in the door and see that like I'm still in the video game. But like that's something that really helped me with that conception that like God doesn't even know that I'm here. Well, yeah, of course, like God's just like, yeah, he's like this parent kind of walking past my teenager like bedroom door.
A
That's the
great
way that I see it
analogy.
in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I had thought of that VR analogy as well. It's perfect. Like the something is going on, but it's not going on. I mean, it's just it's a fantasy. It's an
Right.
illusion, right?
Yeah.
Or as the Course keeps saying, it's a dream.
Mhm.
So the task then becomes one of awaking from the dream. It's very so what's really exciting to what you're saying, that so much of us are experiencing now, that it's not just one of us is waking up, but we're doing this collectively together. And it's a good idea to do it in such a way that it's comfortable and easy, but that may not always be the case. Right?
Well, I think that different people sign up for different ways of awakening. Like
That's
my soul, like obviously wrote this Spanish novella of a life and decided that my awakening would come in the form of a big bucket of ice being thrown in my face. But some people choose to have like a gradual sort of awakening. Some people can learn from other people's experiences.
right.
Like my ego is so centered in like, well, self-centeredness, that like it needs to have its own experience. And like my soul had already developed all of those things knowing that.
There's an interesting line, and I just read yesterday in the Course. I've come across it several times. It says, there is no learning in pain, but there is learning in the overcoming of pain.
I
So
just read a line this morning that said pain and pleasure are, I mean, the way that I interpret it was like just more emphasis on the body, like even pleasure can be that
Oh,
as
yeah,
well.
of course, especially insofar as pleasure becomes an addiction.
Right.
Once it becomes an addiction, sex, whatever it is, doesn't matter what it is, you've overemphasized that area. That doesn't stop you from being a body in space-time, but it keeps you out of the insanity of being trapped in an addiction of some sort, any kind of addiction. Overeating, it seems to be the biggest one of all for the world that we live in at the moment. It's so easy, people get into it, but that's also, I see that as a kind of keeping one stuck and keeping us asleep and keeping us frustrated and feeling unable to change things. That's very difficult, right? So, I see the whole Jesus story, his 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness is really a real look at the ego and the temptations that he's presented with, 3 temptations. And he could give in to any of these. There's a line, of course, which says, power, fame, money, physical pleasures. To whom do these things belong? So those are the great seductions of the world. Power, that's pretty clear. Who are the biggest egos out there? And wrecking the world. Power, fame, money, and so many people with money in particular will find that, well, this just, I got it, but this is just, it's not doing it. It's not waking me up at all. In fact, it's I could get trapped in the material dimension of that sort of thing. All right. Well, the other parts that at some time I'd like to talk to you more about are the metaphysical dimensions of, I was really into, and I think you were too, I was in outer space. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. There was no, sometimes people talk about, did you have this experience of seeing the beautiful gardens that people describe?
No, I
No,
did not.
neither
There
did
was
I.
no physical sight. My whole experience was non-physical, mind's eye. It felt like I was in some sort of like workshop or school. In Michael Newton's book, Journey of Souls,
Right,
when he regresses people in between lives, everything that he describes in that book, I'm like, oh my God, that's where I was. It was like great confirmation for me.
right, right. Well, they're not all the same at all, but there are these interesting overlaps, and that's where it really gets really exciting.
Mhm.
So we've been going on for a while. So let's see, Bud, you want to share with us what's been going on in the chat? And then we begin to have some folks come on and ask you questions, okay?
Absolutely. We do have a couple of questions in chat. A lot of people are just sharing their insights on things that are being shared. And Betty, you got lots of wows earlier. So when John said, give us a wow, it was really, yeah, there was a lot of them. Can I go over some of the questions now, John, or what would you like?
Yeah, go ahead, and then we'll start answering the hands that are raised in afterwards.
Okay. So the first question is, Betty, when you were in your pre-life experience and the setup, was there any sense of karma in choosing your life and choosing your life experiences?
Yes, absolutely. Like I shared, the man that sexually abused me as a small child, we were completing a level of karma with each other, balancing out this life. And then and yes, karma exists and lives must be balanced. And the way that I sort of perceived it, okay, so I use the shopping cart analogy because that's what it looked like for me. If I got through a previous life, and I had not completed all the boxes in the cart, which happens, like you can't go through everything that your soul is so eager to sign up for, then I have to come back in another life and start to balance it. So like I've been here forever. Like I just keep like overdoing it each time. My soul is very overindulgent, picking all of these experiences.
Oh.
And then a lot of the karma also had to do with collective karma, just like what's going on in our collective consciousness for the reason of the awakening, for the Great Awakening, to transmute collective karma as well, which is why my particular life is so dense with contrasted experiences that so many people in our collective sign up for. So, like my life in particular was meant to transmute a lot of that energy for other people.
Well, thank you for that. And here's another question. What is your guidance in helping us understand the illusion is not real and finding our way to claiming our true self as a divine expression?
I love that. Yeah, I think that the guidance that comes for me is true for me. I cannot claim that truth for everyone. But like for me, I choose to live righteously today because it feels better. Like I didn't realize that there was an option. So, like there's certain things that I do to things that I believe give me a high vibration. I cannot claim them for everybody because I know lots of people who are very connected to spirit that do things completely opposite from me. But so I think that it's very individual. And I really think that a big part of the guidance is getting in touch with your most authentic self, finding spaces where you can be your most authentic self. Like if you feel too scared, like I'm just like out there, like, I used to be a prostitute. I was a drug addict because I know that I'm in a dream. So I'm like, who cares if everybody knows like what the first part of my dream was? It's just a dream. But like not everybody has that sort of that mission inside of them to be that way. So I think like finding authentic spaces for yourself, even if it's just with one person, somebody that you can truly be yourself with. I think that that's a big part of the undoing and the awakening process, is getting down to that real core version of yourself. That's just spirit and love.
Right.
Thank you. And those are all the questions we have right now.
Okay, then let's go. Tucker, you're on.
Oh God, I just wish there was some way that I could transfer my whole self over to you, because you are so inspirational, and it's like you're a mirror of my life. So I'm a 77-year-old fart living in a nursing home. I was in Nepal in the Peace Corps. I spent 28 years as a dual diagnosis, non-recovering person in 12-step programs. I worked with Stanislav Grof with giving alcoholics LSD and stuff like that. And I am now, because of John, literally, and I'm saying that not gratuitously.
Careful.
He has introduced me to so many great people like yourself, like Beth Gear, like Corina Zubko, the Aaron Abkey, all these people that you guys have a Course in Miracles basis. And so what I'm wondering about is how you in your own your ego mind, and it's so obvious that you've developed a mindfulness mind that is different from what a lot of us absorb. And I've been able to get closer into that with Thich Nhat Hanh type meditations in the morning for 4 months now, from 7 to 7:30. But one of the things that I'm very interested in is how you can coordinate your life with all these great near-death experiences and parents committing suicide and all this other drugs and prostitution and all this stuff, how you don't have sort of like aversions or justifications for getting on the bandwagon of anti things or whatever stuff. And I'm not making myself too clear, but one of the things that I am interested in you about is that it seems like you're probably in your mid-40s or something, and that I am looking ahead towards really great things to be able to do now, and part of one of the things that I might do a plant-based therapy place on Cape Cod, that I have a place there that all kinds of stuff like that. There's such a burgeoning thing for PTSD, for depression, for all these things, and you just are such a bright light of what you're about. And I'm just wondering how you're going to translate that into the work that needs to be done save the planet, literally. And Marianne Williamson, who I'm not sure whether you've followed her or done anything with her, but she's running for president, and I am so it's so funny because I have a copy of the Nation magazine where she uses the term that everybody invisibilizes her, that you know, the media, everybody else, the Democratic Party, they all say, you know, screw it, you know, you're a crystal lady, you know, even though you've written 15 books on the course and love and all that, but she's putting herself out there to really make a difference, and she's written a 21st century 10-part economic plan for people, and she's so out there, and she has a podcast that she does things with. My final question to you is what do you do with a foreign industry that is $60 billion with a lot of people, you know, doing that, with the depression, with all the high school kids, with the economic inequality, all these things, and it's part of the unreal world that the course doesn't want us to really talk about, but I feel like that it's necessary. So that's my question to you.
Okay, I think I kind of got it. Thank you for all of that information. I appreciate it. So this is the downloads that I've received about what you're talking about. What am I supposed to be here to do?
Right.
Nothing. Nothing. I am just here to be myself, to be a shining light, to be an example. I am not here to preach or teach or proselytize. I do my due diligence, what my mission is, just by existing and holding the light. And, you know, I think that it's very admirable, people who want to put themselves out there and teach. And some people are very interested in being taught. You know, like I listened to my own inner guidance. At first, I thought that I was supposed to like change the world. Like, don't get it twisted. Like I was very self-righteous, and I was like, my way. I'm just gonna mute, bud. I was like very self-righteous, and I thought that, you know, like my way is the only way. And, you know, I also felt that way about drugs and prostitution. I thought that everybody should be like a hedonist. And so like the universe is constantly throwing spiritual bricks at my face and saying like, hey, why don't you re-humble yourself and sit down and just be? But, you know, I did think and I do, you know, I am involved in a lot of different spiritual communities. So I attend a Course in Miracles study groups on Monday nights. I have like a very beautiful Course in Miracles community. I do service work in my 12-step fellowship. That's something that I do on a daily basis. I give back to other people who are searching for recovery in whatever way that I can. I sponsor women. I am sponsored. I work the 12 steps. I also study the Baha'i faith, and I have a beautiful Baha'i community. I'm not a Baha'i myself, but like I really enjoy their scripture a lot. And if you're unfamiliar with what Baha'i is, they believe in all manifestations of God, from Muhammad to their prophet from the late 1800s and everything in between. So I really love that because it seems more like omnistic, and that's something that really resonates for me. And I also do service for the International Association for Near-Death Studies. They have sharing groups for people that have experiences and can't find a community for themselves because they feel so out of place after their spiritual experiences. I work for them as well. I coordinate their webinars for them. I find speakers, and I host a podcast for them on their YouTube channel. So I get to hold space for other experiencers. Now, like, obviously my ego is like, but my spirit says, no, that's not it. You know, like just hold the space for other people, share your testimony when necessary to give other people the courage that they need to share theirs. But I'm just one tiny little piece of a big, intricate puzzle. And so for me, I feel very called to just be the light, and that's all. So, I mean, not that's all. That's
Maybe I think
it's so funny.
Go ahead.
Because John, today he gave me today's lesson 155 for today, June 4th, is that I will step back and let him lead the way.
Beautiful.
And yesterday was the idea that, lesson 154 was that I am among the ministers of God. So I feel very at home with you, because you are just letting yourself be, and all these different things. So how did you get to be Buddha Betty? Are you not Baha'i, but
Yeah, my handle used to be Boogie Betty when I was like a
Boogie Betty.
humanist, and so I just switched it over to Buddha. Just some fun wordplay.
So it's just a wordplay. Oh, okay.
But yeah, I think that you're going to find.
Which rehab did you go to? I mean, I was head of the Greenwich House place in Lower Manhattan, but I was in charge of the places.
I was in a rehab that is from the New York Therapeutic Communities.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think what's going to happen, Betty, and it's going to be so simple and it's going to be so easy. It's just going to keep opening for you. This door will open, and
Exactly.
that door will open, and that door will open, and you just walk down that path and do what you're being asked to do. And there's no need to even plan. A healed mind does not plan. It carries out the plan it receives from wisdom that it's not its own. Somebody said that. I think it was Jesus. Let's go to Lynn, and then Leslie.
Namaste, mighty companions. Daddy, oh my God. God, I relate. I find that if we can talk about our stories without cringing, we can talk about, who we are really. And I remember first time I went into my 12-step group, I saw the sign, "We will love you till you love yourself." And I go far out, And yeah, they did. And I didn't have near-death experiences. Well, I did, but it, consisted of a knife in my throat, gun in my face, things like that. But when I was in my 12-step and I found Marianne Williamson's Return to Love. I read that 3 times. I said, I gotta get the book she's talking about. I love the way you say you gobbled it up. Me too. Like gobble, 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 gobble. And then I got to the workbook, and I gotta stop, only one a day. Oh no. But and I got to the last one, and I found John at Interfaith Fellowship. I stepped back and let him lead the way. And I am so grateful. Like Khalil Gibran used to say, the deeper sorrow carves in you, the more joy you could contain. You know that, girl. and these illusions are very heartbreaking. But I used to say in the 12-step meetings, why can't the world be like this? Because we all looked after each other, and then look at the spiritual groups we're at. We're called to, as John gave me the advice when I asked, be to love you all. Okay. Thank you, John. God bless you, Beth. God bless.
Thanks so much, Lynn.
Betty, in case you didn't know, Lynn is also in Brooklyn.
Oh, beautiful.
Okay,
send you my phone number. I just want to share that 12-step community is so beautiful. Spiritual community is so beautiful. Just the gathering of all of us here today is so beautiful. And this is my world. Like I don't even know what's going on in the world out there, because I choose to focus my energy on my spiritual communities and nothing else. And so when somebody brings something into my awareness that's happening in the collective, I'm completely, I don't even know, I feel maybe like a little bit ignorance is bliss, why wouldn't I focus my attention where it feels joyous as opposed to trying to fix, manage, and control something that's completely out of my hands.
Sometimes I like to say, that stuff that's going on out there, all that insanity, that has always been going on. So you could always get plugged into that, and you could always talk about how awful this war is or that war is. There's actually less war now than ever, even though there's a major war going on. Leslie?
Good morning. Betty, thank you for speaking to us this morning. That was interesting, and we'll just leave it at that. What I wanted to ask you was, in your experience, how have you been able to integrate the 12 steps, A Course in Miracles, and your near-death experiences? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So I did A Course in Miracles before I worked the 12 steps. In fact, I'm not even through my 12 steps. I'm on the 6th step. And if you're unfamiliar with 12-step fellowship, right now I'm focusing on my defects of character, which my ego wants me to believe there are none. What? I'm a beautiful being of light. Of course, there's nothing wrong with me. So I think that all of the experiences really meshed them together really well. I've heard some people in 12 steps say that A Course in Miracles is the graduate work to the 12 steps. So I did mine backwards, which is right on cue for me. But the near-death experience, I never would have. Well, first of all, none of us would have ever come into my awareness without my experience. That's number one. I know that for a fact. But I wouldn't be able to understand any of the course if it wasn't for my spiritual experience. I really don't think that I would have been. I just didn't have the comprehension. Yeah, it's funny because obviously now I can speak very eloquently, but before my experience, the only vocabulary that I had was this long laundry list of drugs that I used and how much money it costs to spend time with me. And I didn't have any other thoughts other than that. And so the fact that I can articulate beautiful sentences together and sound very educated, even though I'm not, is just something from my spiritual experience. I don't know if I answered the question, but I really feel like all of those things, they go together so well. And the more people that I come in contact with that have had near-death experiences, all of them have found A Course in Miracles. So I really feel like there's something there.
Wow.
I think that, I don't know if I would necessarily say that the 12 steps and A Course in Miracles are sort of different levels of things. I think, in fact, they're different manifestations of the same lessons that we need to learn. And, at times we'll shuttle back from one to another. And, I have experience of the 12 steps myself personally, as well as one of my family members. And actually, to be honest with you, my greatest teacher has been my 30-year-old son, who, is now about 8.5 years clean and sober. And he's become, the funny thing is that we think that, for those of us who have children, we think that, initially when they come into the world, that we're responsible for teaching them. Well, I respectfully would disagree with that, because I've had to learn things in a sort of a different way. Not having had a near-death experience myself, but being I was extremely sick about 10, 11 years ago, and I had some, what I can only call funny experiences that very much changed my perspective on things. I'll be honest, the course has been a struggle for me. And I basically said, okay, well, I'll just take it one baby step at a time and see what happens. But I was interested to hear the perspective on sort of the integration of those things, especially from somebody who's had, well, let's be kind and say somewhat dramatic ongoing experiences with things. Thanks for your perspective.
Thanks, Leslie.
Thank you. Jim, come on.
Hey, yes, thank you, Betty. I think the thing I want most is your smile.
Paid for it, thank you. They're partials. I didn't have any teeth before.
Oh, really?
Well, it's what comes underneath the smile and your wonderful attentiveness to people and accepting. My question is, and I assume maybe there was something in your life that was like this, but I feel trapped at the present moment in kind of a traumatic experience in childhood. And all I think about, although I am a course student, all I think about is finding the solution to that, finding some love or something from the outside, because it doesn't seem quite possible to get it from the course or from God or from spirit. And so it's kind of like frustrating. It's like a craving, the Buddhists say we need to overcome that. Well, I'm still living in the craving to overcome this past that doesn't exist anymore, but I surely focus on it all the time. So just looking for any suggestions.
Yes. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing. And there's some things in my life that I won't let go of either. Just because I had some spiritual experience does not mean, I won't let go of my spiritual experience. That's one of the things I won't let go of, right? This story that I continue to affirm over and over again, maybe not leaving room for a new one to come in because I'm so attached to the old one. But, a book that really helped me, and I'll just throw this out there, Robert Schwartz, who's also a Between Lives regressor. He wrote a book called Your Soul's Gift. And he also has a book called Your Soul's Plan, which is his first book. Your Soul's Gift is his second book. And in Your Soul's Gift, he talks about pre-birth planning, very adverse conditions in life. So like there's a chapter about incest, there's a chapter about rape, there's a chapter about miscarriage and abortion. There's a chapter about, just these very dense experiences. And so he regressed people back in between lives, had a medium there to tap into their soul energy while they were walking this walk, and to find out why people choose such adverse things in their life. So, like for me, that belief of the pre-birth planning has given me such an immense amount of freedom. I am no longer a victim to the world I see, just like A Course tells me. And I can choose how I interpret a situation. I can, and it's a process for me, like the undoing. Also, the 12 steps really helped with letting go of my past as well. There's like, a whole step on just doing exactly that, like sort of seeing your part in things. And we don't always have a part in things that happen in our childhood, but we do have a part in if we choose to live there and not let go.
So what do we do with the trapped feeling? Although I do certainly recognize that I chose this to heal some craving or something from the past, or maybe even some karmic stuff, but it doesn't lessen the grasping or the pain of what to do every day. Any thoughts about that?
Well, for me, I set intention every morning, like to let go of things that do not serve me. And I do it before I go to bed as well. Another thing that I did that was really, really transformative for me was I saw a hypnotherapist. He was actually a man who regresses people back to their spiritual experiences. He does all different kinds of regression. But while we were doing the spiritual experience regression, he took me back into some present life trauma. And we went into the scene of my parents' bedroom where my sister and I found them dead, and we erased the scene. And so like that was a whole nother level of freedom for me. Again, I know pre-birth planning. I know that we chose it. My father's my main spirit guide. Like I know that he's with me, but my body has kept the score of what that trauma is, this cellular memory inside of this 3D avatar that I'm inside of. And so I had to do, I was really lucky to be able to do this extra layer of letting go by going back into the scene with my higher self, their higher selves, with God, with source, and erasing it into just a regular bedroom scene, just like a regular, just a regular room instead of this complete disaster of what it was.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope that's helpful, Jim. I was hoping maybe I could just share a photo with you guys of who I was
Please.
before my experience. This is about one month before my awakening. Just want to show you what I looked like.
Oh my God.
Holy
Right.
cow.
Yeah, that's actually me.
Holy cow.
God.
Yeah.
Whew.
So I know that transformation is not only possible, it's inevitable. I mean, like I would not have been awoken otherwise, you know. But yeah, I just wanted to share that because the contrast is just, it's mind blowing.
It's amazing, really.
Thank you.
Jim, I'd want to maybe look back as to why you feel like you're stuck there, and look that the ego is actually connected to that. I'd really recommend the works of Dietrich Walsick, Choose Again, who's a very active Course in Miracles student who really helps people go through letting go of the past stuff.
Okay.
Choose
Thanks.
Yeah. Right. Is there anybody else who would like to come online? Bud, you got anything there?
Yeah, we've got another question or two that we could certainly ask. Can you speak more about the Great Awakening, Betty?
Yes, let's do it. All right, buckle up. Okay, this is my understanding of the Great Awakening. The Great Awakening will be a shift in consciousness from a level of third dimensional thinking to fifth dimensional thinking, which means we're going to go from an ego-centered thought system to a spirit-centered thought system. And, you know, it's already happening for so many of us. Obviously, we're all sitting here today. We must have spirit-minded thoughts. Doesn't mean that we live there forever, right? Like we go back. I mean, I go back and forth. I'll speak for me. I go back and forth between the two. But the Great Awakening is going to be a shift in consciousness. The way that I perceive it is that it's going to be a lot like a near-death experience. It's going to be like this great solar flash that's going to happen. And, you know, our thoughts will start to recreate a new world. And so right now, I feel like the collective consciousness is shifting. You know, right now we have a collective consciousness that, or in the past we have, that is centered on materialism, consumerism. You have to work, you have to do this, you have to do things that you don't enjoy so that you can suffer through life and then get reincarnated and have to do it all over again. And now I feel like, especially since the pandemic, people have had an opportunity to find their passion more. They weren't trapped going to jobs that they dislike, you know, and even like being around families that they don't like. Like a lot of people made major life changes in this time, you know, because like our whole world got flipped upside down, and that all happened for a divine reason. And so I really feel like right now, the collective consciousness, meaning the majority consciousness, like we're starting to awaken, we're starting to step into our soul missions. And so that when this Great Awakening happens, our thought systems will be the thoughts that start to recreate our environment. There will still be an illusion, you know, like we'll still have like a human experience to have, but it will be centered in the happy dream as opposed to the nightmare.
I
That's
feel
awesome.
very much the same way. My sense is that it's really speeding up.
It's very near, very near.
Yeah, very.
I would not have been awoken otherwise. This was like, I was cool being asleep. This is definitely happening right now.
There was a prelude to this back in the 60s and 70s, you know, during the hippie generation and Woodstock, and this whole kind of change in consciousness was going on. But I really see that now as a kind of a prequel, or just sort of it was an awakening, but now you're like, we're rubbing our eyes and we're still not really awake. If you will.
I think that was the groundwork. That was the foundation to know that societal change can happen. There was such a huge amount of societal change in that time period.
There really
was. And so it's the foundation to let us know that there can also be another wave of societal change. I mean, it's inevitable.
The dawning of the age of Aquarius.
Yes. And here we are. Here we are in the age. Yep.
You know, it was just coming up at that point, and now it's beginning to shine.
Oh, yes.
And that's what I'm excited about, you know. So wonderful. We still got about 8 minutes. Like, Tucker, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to compliment both of you guys on the fact that, you know, we really are. I've been following so many end of the sixth sun, the end of the sixth extinction, the Mayan predictions, the age of Aquarius, like and all these things are pointing to the fact that we really are part of quantum physics, and that there's a thing from outer space that Ancient Aliens talks about on the History Channel, and all these other things that I'm worried myself that I'm getting so full of all this information, but I'm absorbing it so much, as John can tell, because he gets all my emails, and hopefully you'll give us your email, Betty, so that you can be subjected to all my emails. But the thing is that I just feel such a part of this collaborative influence, and you say from the awakening is a lot of people say it's not the third, it's to the ninth level. And Rob, one of Aaron Abney, one of the people that we had on, is that a lot of these people are coming in it from a lot of different ways. That it's just wonderfully exciting.
Sure.
As the Chinese say, may you live in exciting times, but as a curse. But that the idea that all this chaos is, people can either look at it as danger or opportunity, and so I just see it as huge opportunities.
Absolutely.
I think that this is one of the ways that I've been able to absorb Betty's wonderful story of 12-step stuff. I mean, so many people are eschew Alcoholics Anonymous because of the God stuff and all that, and yet other people like Stan Groff found that LSD gives them that kind of experience that she had. I'm not sure what drugs you'd had before, or whether the petit moors of sexual exploration or whatever, those things led you to being able to transform yourself. And I'm wondering if you can speak to that at all, Betty.
You were all over the place, Tucker, but I'm going to go with the last thing that I heard. So yeah, the combination of drugs that I was on was everything. Like I said, I was a heroin addict. I was addicted to methamphetamine. I belonged to the Sister Fellowship of AA. And I was also on I overdosed on hallucinogens. So I had a capsule of straight psilocin, which is the active ingredient in psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms. I was also on LSD and ketamine. And this was like my regular drug routine, though. This was this was very regular for me to be on all of these drugs. I happened to take an overdose of this one particular drug because I had never really done it before. And I was going to go do my laundry, and I was like, I might as well be wavy for some mundane human task. And then my whole brain exploded open. But I'm not really sure where else you were going with that, but I'm happy to share that. That was my drug-a-log for the day. That's where my experience came from.
Let's go to Paul and Len, and then we're probably at the end of our time.
Yeah, I'm still very curious about the Great Awakening. And the question I have is there a correlation between the fact that people are becoming more and more disillusioned with organized religion?
Sure.
And the Great Awakening? It seems to me there's a definite correlation there.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I totally agree. John, do you want to speak to it? I see that.
Well, no, I totally agree too. You can address it. I've been talking about it in some of my classes all along. It's just so obvious, the old. I love Buckminster Fuller saying, you don't oppose the old by condemning it. You make it obsolete through superior methodology. And that's really what's happening is the churches, they're just the rituals, the creeds, the dogmas, the required way of believing you're a bad person if you do this, all that condemnation that's in there, it just doesn't work. And so it's inevitable that a whole new approach is happening in spirituality, and it's not happening in the churches. And it's not going to be happening in the churches because the churches are blocks. They're boxes. Everything's put into the box, and we're already outside of the box. and you had to realize that it's happening outside of the box. And it's not a bad thing. It's a really good thing. And technology has helped so much in this. I mean, what we're doing right now, just think about it, this wouldn't even been possible 5 years ago. I mean, it's just incredible that this is going on, that we can talk to each other like this. So I was thinking this morning for some reason earlier about, there was one other really great technological development that transformed mankind almost exactly 500 years ago, 1521. And that was Martin Luther, whose teachings only became available because of something that had been invented just prior to him, the printing press. The printing press all of a sudden changed everything. Now people, and his 95 Theses became the bestseller, the first bestseller, because a printer saw the value of those and started spreading those all over the place. And that's why I got people excited. Well, now we've got this. We've got YouTube, we've got the internet, we've got Zoom. We can talk to each other and find minds which are incredibly deep. And you are not seeing that coming from, I'm still amazed after 50 years almost, that there's not one seminary other than some seminary we work with in New York that's looking at A Course in Miracles. My God, most incredible theological document to cross the face of planet Earth, and they're still saying no. Well, that's okay. They can say no, because it's coming to us now from a whole nother direction, right? People like you who have experiences that then wake them up. Len, you want to finish us off, and then we'll say goodbye to folks.
Beyond your wildest dreams, I didn't have dreams. Now I know what they meant. We will not regret the past, nor wish to close the door on it. Yeah, sure, right. Oh my God, I'm still blown away, you know? Thank you.
Well, Len, seeing how you're there, I'm going to put the Lord's Prayer from A Course in Miracles on screen and let you read that as our closing piece, okay?
Wonderful. Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
The Lord's Prayer from A Course in Miracles. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you, in which there are no illusions, and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander into temptation, for the temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you have given, and accept but this into the minds which you created and which you love. Amen, amen, amen.
And thank you so very, very much, Betty. I think this is just an opening of a door here for us, and we'll be doing some more work together in the future.
I'm just wondering if Betty, you can give us a way to communicate with you.
I put it in the chat, Tucker?
In the
My
chat.
Facebook, Instagram, email, all that good stuff.
Okay, great. I'll look
Yeah.
in the chat. Thank
All
you.
right.
Okay. And
It's been such a pleasure. You are such a beautiful person, and congratulations on your transformation.
thanks. So thank you all for being here. If you want to come and we want to visit the class on Tuesday, let me know. And in 3 weeks, we're going to have PMH Atwater on talking about the most common features of all near-death experiences. She's a long-term researcher in this field. So goodbye, and thank you for being here.
Mwah.
Thank you so much.
Betty,
I'll be calling you, Lynn. Grateful for you.
Okay. Betty, if you can hang on for a minute, I'd
Yes.
appreciate it. Okay. Lynn, thanks for being here. Tucker, Gloria, and
Thank you. Thank you.
Jean,
Thank you.
Toby, Doug, wonderful. Margot.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Betty.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Thank you
Leslie.
so much.
That was so beautiful, Betty. Thank you, thank you,
Doug, I'm
thank you.
grateful to meet you in person. I follow you on Instagram.
I was gonna say, have you two met yet?
Yeah, I follow you on Instagram. I'm happy to see you.
Wow, wow.
Yeah,
Such an honor. Thank you, Betty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
David's a partner in the One Mind Foundation. here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we work together, have been since the 70s.
I was going to say, listening to you is such a delight. Truly,
Like,
truly. You're so articulate for the Holy Spirit.
yeah, that's
It's the Holy Spirit speaking through you.
It's a beautiful compliment. Thank you. Happy to be the vessel.
right on. Dennis, thanks, good. Nairobi, good to see you, hon. And some of the rest of you, the video is off. Are you still there?
I would, it would be gratuitous of me to say how pleasurable it was. So thank you so much. And Wavy Wanderer, be
Yes.
careful. You're going to get emails from Tucker C at AOL. I'm not the Tucker Carlson that was fired from Fox News, but so
Yeah.
Yeah.
all right. So thank you guys.
Thanks, Tucker.
Thank both John.
Dennis, thanks for being
thanks
here.
for presenting Betty to us. You are such a finder
Sure.
of great people. Thank you.
Well, and every once in a while you strike gold.
You struck gold on so many people. So anyhow.
All right. Well, I don't know. I think some of these people are probably still they're there, but they're not there. So, Karine, hi. Nice to be Karen. Hi. Actually, Betty, I think I'll call you.
Okay.
Okay. We'll
Sounds
talk.
good. Thank you so much. Thanks, Bud, for backing us up.
Thank you.
See you guys later.
Absolutely. Take care.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you.
Bye now.
So long.